Graphic design defined. The what, how, where, when and who of graphic design. Welcome to Graphic Design Defined. Over the coming weeks, we'll take you on a stroll through the technicolor world of graphic design. We will cover everything from the visual and psychological art of storytelling, including branding, typography and logo design, to what to expect from a career as a professional graphic designer. This series of podcasts is brought to you by the Australian Academy of Graphic Design. Hi everybody, my name's Fiona Byrne. I'm sitting here with esteemed Academy lead tutor and professional graphic designer Sam Baker, and we're going to have a chat about graphic design. So we'll start with, I guess, the most simple yet complex questions. Sam, what is graphic design?
Hi Fiona. Graphic design, I had a quick search for this, I'll be honest with you, because I wanted to know what the general consensus was for graphic design. And I whacked it into Google, and the first result that comes back from the Oxford Dictionary is the art or skill of combining text and pictures in advertisements, magazines, or books. That's it.
That sounds very exciting.
And it's like, I'm not quite sure that's up to date enough.
Right.
Because my experience tells me that that's probably not 100% true anymore, and there's a hell of a lot more to it than that. I would say, especially in my experience, it's kind of like, if you ask me what is graphic design, I think my answer would be more like, and I wrote this down because I think it needs to be quite succinct because it can be massive.
Yeah.
Graphic design is the strategic practice of crafting visual communications. I thought that was quite short, but quite broad in terms of.
Okay. So then to the layman, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It's basically, I think, the way that you put things you place things and you construct a visual, whether that's an animated visual or a static visual. And I mean, visual could be anything from a printed to a online to a billboard or a I don't know, a TV advert or anything like that. But it's the art of being able to place things, elements,
Right.
within an artboard, should we say, or within an area, to communicate. And that could be to communicate a sort of ethos, or it could communicate a message, basically.
So is it like advertising, or is it more than that?
It's so much more than that. I think it can cover so many different ways of looking at graphic design. Can basically everything's been graphic design. If you look out in the world, you go out in a city anywhere in the world, you will see graphic design, elements of graphic design everywhere. Whether it is in an advertisement, whether it's in a shop window, it's in a logo, whether it's in wayfinding, so all the signage and stuff like that. You look on the side of a bus.
See, that's interesting that you said wayfinding there, because I think that's probably an area that just goes so underappreciated, right? Where people think a graphic designer, someone created the Coca-Cola logo or whatever, but actually every single thing we're looking at are all around someone designed, right?
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. And wayfinding is a funny one because you'll be walking along and you'll interact with it, and you'll sort of subconsciously see it and be able to respond to it, but you don't necessarily think about it being a part of graphic design or a part of anything that's been designed. It is a funny, but there's things like that everywhere in graphic design. There's sort of different subject matters within graphic design that are so specific and so niche that some graphic designers that's all they'll do because that is what they really like doing, and that's what they want to do, and that's just an area that they've decided they want to work in.
Yeah.
And then some designers like myself maybe kind of just sort of a broad brush across all graphic design. I kind of try and do a bit of everything if I can, because that's what excites me, being able to do, 1 minute I'll be working on a flat piece of design and the next minute I'll be doing some sort of 3D representational animation or something like that.
So what does a graphic designer do? I mean, it sounds like it's an incredibly broad term then.
Yeah.
So what kind of work would a graphic designer generally do?
So I can only I kind of speak from my experience. So I've been in the game for I don't know, 18, 20 years overall or something like that, quite a long time. And I've done everything from illustration, animation, web design, sort of film stuff, film credits and stuff like that, through to flyers and brochures and sort of promotional materials, if you like.
Yeah.
So I think a graphic designer can do all those things, but you've got things like wayfinding, you've got things like a bit more specific, a bit more, like I say, a bit more niche that you can sort of concentrate on if that's your thing. You know, graphic design nowadays is so much more that, like, I remember when I went into graphic design, I went to uni to do graphic design, obviously, and I said to my mum and dad, I said, I want to go into graphic design. And they said, all right, is that like colouring in?
Yeah,
that's exactly what they said. And this is 25 years ago, maybe. Yeah. And they were like, I don't understand, what is graphic design? Yeah. And it is, back then, it's very different to obviously what it is now, because I think a lot more people have a general idea of what graphic design is, or at least they have they're able to appreciate it a little bit more, but maybe they don't realize exactly the amount of work that a graphic designer can and does do, really.
Yeah. But it's essentially the same thing. You're just using more sophisticated tools, right? But has it, I mean, I'm guessing those tools have influenced, you know, the evolution of graphic design as well. I mean, we do live in the visual age, right? But when you say, like, oh, I might have done, you know, film credits, or I might have done, you know, wayfinders or posters, what do you mean by done? What did you do? Like, describe what the role of a graphic designer in doing, say, film credits. What would you be responsible?
Right, so usually you'll get, as a graphic designer, you tend to work sort of within a brief. You will be given your work, probably. I mean, my experience is, I mean, I've worked as a freelancer, so I work on my own as a lot more as well. But in a kind of more traditional job role, you know, you're going to be working probably as part of a team, so you'll get an element of a brief. So it'll be a big brief or a large sort of broad brief for everyone, and then you'll get your section of the brief that comes through to you, and you'll work specifically on that, whether it's on your own or whether it's with a copywriter or whether it's with sort of branding experts or anyone like that within the company, if it is a company that you're working as part of. And you'll get stuff through, and then you'll work. Maybe it's from the beginning, so you'll get a broad brief relatively for your sort of part of something that you're putting together for this project, for example. And you'll get part of this brief, and you'll work from it from the start to the bottom. But you might be coming in later on to it as well, so you might be getting. So it depends on which stage you kind of come into the brief and where you act within that brief, if you like. But I prefer to get a brief from the start to the finish, and you work on it specifically, you know, within part of a team from start to finish. So you get the initial brief, so the outline of what the project is, and then you'll go away, obviously come up with some concepts, some ideas, some general kind of projects, sort of in company sort of idea. It's quite hard to kind of put it into words a lot of times.
Yeah, there's a lot to it.
Briefs are so different, because you'll get a brief from one part of the company or an individual as from a different company, and it will look very different to a brief that you'll get from another one. Right. So as part of the problem of being a graphic designer, and part of the kind of progress that you see throughout your career, is you're able to read briefs differently from different people, but able to sort of dissect the information and pull information out of it to be able to then create actionable points to then create the work off the back of it.
Is all this design chat suddenly stirring something up inside you? Head over to graphicdesignacademy.com.au. You'll get loads of info on courses, flexible study plans, and easy payment plans. So the brief that you've received is kind of like the starting point, right? Which is the hopes and dreams, the wishes of the client, right? Yeah. But I mean, when there's obviously going to be, say, branding, for example, and guidelines that you're going to have to stick to. So you know, I'm just thinking, you know, if it's a print project, for example, you're going to have to put their logo somewhere and they're going to have maybe certain colors that they use. But, you know, how much creative freedom can you really run with on something like that? Is that, you know, do you get to really explore your creativity, or does it depend very much on the project and the client, I guess, as well? Like, how would you go about having a great idea and you really want them to listen to you and make it work?
Yeah, it will. It does depend on the client, and a lot of it will depend on your kind of, not your status within the business necessarily, but it'll depend on what you've done before and kind of what's come before in your career. So you get to a certain, like, so for me now, I'll obviously see the branding guidelines, and I'll see kind of the overall arching kind of brand vision and everything, but I won't be necessarily constrained by it. Obviously you have to be limited in certain respects to the way that you use some of the assets and some of the, obviously the logo and the placement and the word, you know, the wording and the copy that goes within it. But at the same time, I don't see it as a constraining box necessarily. I'll see it as a sort of starting point for 10. You kind of put those elements in that have to be in there, that have to be a certain scale, have to be relative to everything around them. But then everything else is you. You know, it's you kind of, yeah. Once you've been in the game for a little while, you're able to take that initial sort of guideline and that initial brief, and you're able to expand on it rather than be brought in by it. Yeah, it is tricky, but you begin to be able to see the gaps, if you like, within the concept and within the brief itself.
So what would you say then to like a graphic designer sort of starting out? You know, they're probably just, you know, graduated from the academy or whatever they've done, and they're maybe still trying to find their niche if they do end up in a niche, or they, you know, like you said, some graphic designers will do lots of different areas and some will specialize. Starting out then, what would you say, you know, would be a good approach for someone, let's say, whether it's freelance or working for a company?
I personally, I think the best thing you like, so you've just graduated, you know, you think, great, I want to start some work. The best thing I think you can probably do is go into a sort of like a medium to large business, sit within the design team there and learn from everyone around you. So if you're part of a team of, so at my first job, I was part of a team of, I think there was 14 of us. And that was copywriters, that was sort of account managers, and then obviously the designers and the illustrators and stuff like that as well. So I sat there and I just absorbed. I just became a sponge for everything around me. And I think, personally, I think that's the best way you can go about it. I think it's very difficult to come straight out of having a degree or gaining some sort of a qualification and just go straight into freelance and straight into launching yourself, if you like, into the world. It's quite difficult to do that, and I think personally I'd always try and push people towards just getting in within a design team, just so you can begin to see what happens and how it happens and who does what, when, how, where, and it then gives you the ability to be able to take what you've learned, put it into action within that environment, within that kind of safe environment, if you like. If you start within a team, you kind of get the ability to be able to absorb all the different skills of people around you, and see it in action. Obviously, then that sort of transpires into pitching the idea to the client, whether it's external or internal within the business itself. And then you're able to sort of be a little bit more confident, maybe. You'll be able to kind of be a little bit more... have belief in your own abilities, because you know that this works in this environment. So if I then become a freelancer or someone who's doing some stuff on their own for a business or for a smaller business, maybe in the initial stages, you're able to put that into action and know that it does work because you've done it elsewhere and you've seen it happen elsewhere.
And you've done both, right? You've worked as a freelancer, and so would you weigh up the pros and cons of both? What do you think, you know?
Yeah, freelancer, obviously you have to be so so structured in the way that you kind of you basically you're running a business, aren't you? You sat there in your office or in your room, and you are running a small business. All right, there's just one of you, but you are running it as a business, and people then they want a business kind of from you. They want to be able to actively contact you. They want to be able to talk about the brief. They want to be able to see what you've been working on, and it's very different. And I enjoy both sides. I enjoy sitting within a working environment with other graphic designers and copywriters and illustrators and stuff, web developers. But at the same time, I do enjoy just sitting here and doing my work.
Yeah.
For the clients that I've now been able to build a rapport with.
I think it's true. Like when people think of freelance, you think I'll be my own boss and I've got my own freedom and I'll pick and choose. Eventually, pick and choose my projects. But it's also like you work harder than you'll ever work when you work for yourself, right? Because the buck stops at you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can work as hard as you want, and that's the beauty of it. You can always try and reach out to more clients. You can try and get more clients on your books, if you like, and have kind of like I have retainers with companies now, so they pay me per month, an hourly kind of sort of static, and I either do the work for them or it gets rolled on to the next month.
Oh, is that common then? That's how you'd be hired? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's quite common nowadays because they want to be able to know that they can rely on, if they've got, I don't know, 10 hours of your time, let's use it. And it's almost like a kind of marketing thing, so that they'll kind of break down what they need to market for the month, whether it's a retail product or whether it's a service, and they'll say, look, we need to push this, we need to make sure that this happens, and it gives you the ability to be able to build it how you want, because you do build, like I say, you do build a rapport. You do build that ability to be able to talk to them in a more relaxed, laid back kind of way, which is really good.
Actually, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So, I mean, you often think about like something like, a graphic design project or a contract, and it's a once-off thing, and maybe the client will ask you back for another big marketing campaign they're doing, but actually they'll keep you on a retainer and you'll do small jobs throughout. So is that a very common business model? Would graphic designers expect that, when they go into the world as professionals?
It's become more so. So I wouldn't say that I did this at the beginning. I don't think. It all comes back to that relationships and that rapport kind of level. I built it. It's only really happened for me in the sort of last 10 or 5 years, something like that, really, where I'm able to kind of take the clients that I have that rapport with and have that ability to just, I know what they want and how they want it. They know that I can take that and actively work within a time scale to be able to give them what they want.
Yeah. So you've built a sort of level of trust. These are the soft skills that people, I guess, don't realize the value of until you need them, right? And that is communication and, loyalty and trust with clients and that. I mean, graphic design is essentially it's a communication tool, right? It's a means of communication, right? What you're doing is communicating with. So I guess, is that something when you're, as a tutor, is that something you talk to your students about as well? How to communicate with their clients and thinking of that from a business point of view and so they're going to work with other businesses, but they're also going to have different kinds of clients. Is that something that you would talk about?
Yeah, it's really important, whether you work for yourself or whether you're within a company and you kind of pitch into the people within the company, different areas within the company. It's very important, and it is something that I do try and push the student, make students aware of. That it's the way that they act, the way that they talk, the way that they present themselves, as well as the actual work that they're doing. It's massively important, especially if you do, like I say, if you do go into freelance, because you are the person of the, that's what people see. It's you, and you are having, whether you like it or not, you're having to sell your services.
Yeah, it's true. And it is a whole package as well, right? You want to, So if we were to take from what we've covered here, what is graphic design? what do people expect from it as a starting out as a career? Like, we could break it down into really simple terms. Would you say graphic design is everything you see all around you? You tell me in your words how you would describe it in short.
It's visual communication. Let's just say it as that, because graphic design, I think the term graphic design is almost a little bit dated now. And like I say, right at the start, the Oxford Dictionary version of it is very dated. So yeah, I think it's the art of visual communication, and I think by being so broad, that covers everything within graphic design. Yeah.
Perfect. If you find the subject of graphic design inspiring and you're thinking, I want to know more, head over to graphicdesignacademy.com.au. Whether you just want to see if graphic design is for you, or you're a pro and you need to upskill, there's a course for everyone.